You know, everyone always wants my opinion on spinnerbaits, and spinnerbaits are something that I do truly love to fish, and I've had a lot of great success with it over the years in bass fishing and bass tournaments, and I can, kind of thank my dad for that. He started me out when I was a kid throwing spinnerbaits, and there's just something always about a wire bait, a spinnerbait, and the strike that you get with it. And a spinnerbait a lot of times catches a bigger grade of fish, but everybody always asks me, and I carry lots of different types of spinnerbaits, and not every spinnerbait's the same. It's just like a crankbait. There's different applications for all of them. So a lot of times, I tell people I carry a lot of different baits, but as you can see, a lot of my baits a lot of times will revolve around chartreuse and white. I don't get real technical with the color of the skirts. It's usually a white or a chartreuse and white or some variation of those two colors right there. So I kind of take that out of the equation, but where I get technical at is on head design and blade combinations. Now, there's a lot of spinnerbait companies out there that make rounder headed spinnerbaits, as you can see, like these two right here. And where rounder headed spinnerbaits shine, I feel like, is a lot of times when you're fishing around rocks, riprap, wood, stumps, trees, something like that. The reason being is they've got a wider base to them, and they won't get into the cracks of rocks and things near as bad. Now, whenever I'm fishing around vegetation, a lot of times, that's where I like a spinnerbait with a more pointed head, or real thick, bushy, brushy cover, something that's got a lot of little bitty limbs. And that's where these pointed heads, these are a versatile bait, but they really tend to really excel a lot of times in real thick cover. And then you have spinnerbaits, a lot of times, that kind of have the best of both worlds. They kind of have a little fatter head, but yet they're almost kind of a little bit of a keel-shaped head. Now, these spinnerbaits, you can kind of fish these in a wide variety of areas. You can fish them in grass, you can fish them around rocks, but now sometimes they will get wedged into the corners of rocks and things of that nature. And then you have more of the keel-shaped, the thinner diameter head spinnerbaits. Now, these are great around grass, and they're great whenever you need to fish at speed, like I said, up north for smallmouth and things of that nature. Now, one thing, I rarely ever throw a trailer hook. As you can see, I have a trailer hook on this spinnerbait. About the only time I do use a trailer hook is usually when I'm up north and I'm burning spinnerbaits for smallmouth bass up north in New York and Detroit and different places like that. That's when, even sometimes you can do it in the south around Table Rock and things in the fall on bluffs and different things. That's when I like to use a trailer hook, is when I'm fishing a spinnerbait real fast, just barely bulging the surface of the water. But other than that, I hardly ever use a trailer hook. Now, as far as blade combinations, whenever I'm fished with dirty water, that's water that I can see probably a foot or less, that's when I like to use round blades, Colorados, Indianas. You can see this is an Indiana shaped blade right here, both of these. Now, an Indiana blade has a little bit of lift to it. It gives you some vibration, but it also gives you some flash, where a round Colorado blade, a lot of times, it'll give you more vibration. Indiana has always been one of my favorites. Like I said, I can keep an Indiana down a little better at depth, and it kind of gives me the best of both worlds. It gives me more flash, and it also gives me that vibration. Now, one thing, willow leaves. Willow leaves are always good. I mean, these are always good, especially whenever you're fishing on grass, vegetation, wood, no matter what. I tend to use willow leaves a lot of times. I don't really seem to have any particular time that I don't use one, but I like it when the water's a little cleaner. And I always, as you can see on a lot of my spinnerbaits that I have out here, I'll always have some sort of combination of silver and gold. That's why whenever you get a combination of the rotation of those two blades, you'll get more flash in the water. So willow leaves are always good. Like I said, spring, summer, fall, they really mimic the size of bait fish. Now, when it comes to spinnerbait size, I have a wide variety, and I use spinnerbait sizes kind of to gauge depth, just like you would different build crankbaits. Now, you have 1/2 ounce spinnerbaits, you have 3/4 ounce spinnerbaits, then you also have 1 ounce spinnerbaits. Now, there's a lot of different ways you can fish that. I can take a 3/4 ounce bait, and I like that down to around, it really shines in that kind of 8 to 15 foot of water. Now, once you start getting over 15, 16, 17, that's where a 1 ounce bait really comes in. Now, you can see this one here, this has got a great big willow leaf on it. Now, I can take this, I said, I like these in deep water, But now you can take this spinnerbait right here with this big willow leaf, you can add a big bulky plastic trailer to it, and you can fish this bait in 5-6 feet of water, because you'll get a lot of lift. You'll get a lot of lift out of this. Now, as far as vibration is concerned, what I always like to tell people is no matter what you're fishing, if you're using a Colorado Indiana or a double Colorado or double willow leaf, whenever you increase the size of this blade right here, whenever you increase the size, this one here, you see, is quite a bit smaller, but the bigger the blade I go here, the less vibration I get off this hanging blade right here. So that's something to always keep in mind. So that's why a lot of times, like this Colorado willow, you see you got this small Colorado with this great big willow leaf blade, I'm going to get a lot of vibration off of this. Now, right here on this one here, you can see this spinnerbait here. This one here has a 4 and a 4.5 on it. I'm not going to get quite as much vibration out of this bait right here, because this blade is a little bit bigger. But what I am going to get, I'm going to get a lot of lift, and I'm going to get a lot of flash. So this would be a bait if I was trying to fish in a few feet of water and keep the bait in the strike zone. This would be one that I would really look at. So as long as you understand that the way the different blades work. And another thing to understand is spinnerbait weight. Now, a lot of companies make a 1/2 ounce bait, but they're all different. And the different blade combinations have a bearing on how deep you can fish them, and also how the frames of the spinnerbaits are designed. That's another big one. A lot of times that can cause the bait. This one here has a lot of the weight forward, so this bait will get down, it'll stay down deeper. Where this bait here, the weight's distributed throughout the center, so this bait will run more parallel. So that's one thing to take into consideration. How deep am I wanting to fish it? How fast am I wanting to fish it? And how quick do I want it to get there? That's all things to take into consideration. Now, a lot of times spinnerbaits kind of become situational. They're usually better when you have a little stain or a little color to the water. You can use them in clear water, but a lot of times you got to fish them faster to where the fish don't get as good a look at it. So this is some of the things that I do, and I hope I've explained some of this to you. The way to look at spinnerbaits differently. Look at it just like a crankbait with different bill lengths on it, just like you would when you go in a store, and understand that all of them are different and they all catch fish, but they'll all fish at different depths a little better and a little faster, and they'll have more vibration. But as long as you understand that, I think if you'll go out and buy you some different varieties of spinnerbaits, I think you'll catch more bass and you'll learn a lot more about how to fish them.